Okay, let's dive in. The digital world, that feels like it's running on fast forward, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, new tech popping up constantly.
Creating these entirely new kinds of online stars,
Yeah.
and it's sending massive ripples, maybe even tidal waves, through established industries.
It really is. The landscape's just being constantly reshaped. It's almost hard to keep track sometimes.
And today, we're looking right at that convergence, the explosion of these AI-generated influencers and, well, how they're impacting platforms like OnlyFans.
Right.
And what makes this especially timely, I think, based on the sources we've got, is the surprising news that OnlyFans itself might actually be up for sale.
That's the kicker, yeah. We've pulled together quite a stack of different perspectives for this deep dive. Articles from places like LA Progressive, New York Post, but also insights from, let's say, less conventional online communities like forums such as incels.is's, various Reddit threads, plus other reports really digging into the business side.
So our goal here really is to cut through all that noise. We want to extract the most important nuggets, the key insights, and help you understand what's really going on at this intersection of AI, content creation, and, well, big business, sometimes controversial business.
Definitely. And there are some genuinely surprising facts in here and definitely some viewpoints that might make you pause a bit.
I saw those.
It really paints a complex picture. We're looking at everything from the cutting edge tech being used to the massive financial scale of these platforms and then the broader societal impacts.
Okay, let's unpack it then, starting with this virtual star phenomenon.
Yeah.
What exactly are these AI-generated influencers the sources are talking about?
So based on the articles, they're essentially virtual characters, personas, if you like, powered by artificial intelligence.
Okay.
We're talking technologies like generative adversarial networks, GANs, which are amazing at creating super realistic images.
Right, the image generation part.
Exactly. And natural language processing, NLP, which lets the AI generate text, mimic conversations, even adopt specific tones.
So they aren't human, obviously,
Yeah.
but the AI makes them look, sound, and kind of interact in ways that feel incredibly lifelike. That LA Progressive piece mentioned mimicking human emotion and appearance really convincingly.
Yeah, startlingly accurate sometimes. And this is where the contrast with human influencers really pops out in the sources. The efficiency argument.
Oh, right.
Think about it. An AI persona, it never gets tired. It can post and interact, whatever, 24/7, doesn't need breaks, doesn't call in sick, no vacations. And crucially, it can be programmed to say or do pretty much anything without the risk of, human error, scandals, burnout, all that stuff that comes with real people.
Wow. Okay, from a purely operational standpoint, that sounds like a brand manager's dream almost.
It does, doesn't it? And that's exactly why the sources say brands and creators are seriously starting to look at AI for scalable, always-on strategies
It offers a level of control, consistency.
that you just can't get with human talent alone.
Yeah. Now, the sources really zero in on OnlyFans. That seems to be a real hotspot for this trend. AI models becoming quite common there.
Yes, definitely. The reports highlight OnlyFans as a key platform where creators are using AI to generate content, images, videos, interactions, often without a physical person ever being in front of a camera.
And the benefits they're seeing. I remember reading faster content production was a big one.
Huge one. Think how much faster you can generate, say, dozens of images or short video clips using AI compared to setting up shoots, filming, editing.
Right, the whole traditional workflow.
Exactly. And that speed often translates to, well, potentially higher profit margins. You're cutting out big production costs.
Makes sense.
Plus, you avoid all the personal privacy concerns for the model, the burnout issues, the scheduling nightmares.
And it seems like we're already seeing results. Some sources claim these AI models are pulling in subscriber numbers that actually rival or maybe even beat human creators. Is that right?
That claim is definitely out there in the source material, yeah. It suggests AI is moving fast from being just a niche tool to a serious competitive force on these platforms.
Okay, this is where some of the viewpoints from those online communities get really intense. We looked at discussions on forums like incels.is. Their take is pretty stark.
It is, yeah. That particular community, incels.is, seems to view AI as like an inevitable replacement for human creators on platforms like OnlyFans. And they use some, frankly, dehumanizing language to describe those human creators.
And they're not just speculating, right? They're talking specific tools. They mentioned things like the WAN 2.1 image-to-video model.
That's an AI designed to take a static image and animate it, turn it into a short video clip.
Okay, and software like Comfy UI.
Right. Comfy UI is basically a popular visual interface. It lets users kind of chain together different AI models and processes so you can create more complex stuff like longer videos or really detailed images without deep coding knowledge.
So they're focused on the tech, the how-to.
Very much so. And their predictions are for like rapid, almost exponential improvement. They talk about next-gen AI chips enabling video generation that's so realistic, so easy to make.
That it just floods the market.
Yeah, that it floods the market within maybe just a few years, making it incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, for human creators to compete purely on volume or even realism down the line.
And some in those forums, they actually see this as a good thing, using terms like AI doing God's work.
It's a viewpoint you see expressed, yes. It seems driven by a desire to disrupt the income streams of human creators on these platforms, creators whose work they strongly disapprove of.
Wow.
They do acknowledge that current AI stuff can still look uncanny or, kind of trash sometimes.
Yeah.
But the overwhelming expectation is that it's going to get much, much better very quickly.
And it's not just theory. Sources mention individuals are already generating AI content for personal use or maybe commercially.
Yeah, it's becoming more accessible, not just big studios. And there's another interesting angle. Many popular human OnlyFans creators already outsource chatting with fans to other humans, right? Chatters.
Ah, okay.
AI could potentially replace those chatters too, which, maybe counterintuitively, could make AI-assisted content more accessible to smaller creators who couldn't afford a human chatter team, but maybe could use an AI for interactions.
Huh. So the AI isn't just changing the visual content, it could reshape the whole support system around creators.
It's a potential shift in the labor dynamics within the platform itself, yeah.
Okay, let's pivot from the content and the creators to the platform itself. This huge news, OnlyFans, despite being massively successful, is apparently on the market.
That's the big story, yeah. Coming out of places like the New York Post, LA Weekly, Leonid Radvinsky, the owner, is reportedly exploring a sale.
Can you give us the quick background on Radvinsky and just the sheer scale of OnlyFans under his ownership?
Sure. Radvinsky, he's a U.S. citizen, immigrated from Ukraine as a kid, bought OnlyFans back in 2019, lives down in Miami now. And under him, the platform's growth and profitability have been, well, spectacular is the word.
Spectacular's right. I saw that New York Post piece. He took over $1 billion in dividends out between 2021 and 2023. Over $1 billion. With, $472 million in 2023 alone?
Yeah, the financial performance is just undeniable. And the scale is massive, too. Something like 4 million creators, 300 million subscribers. Huge numbers. And LA Weekly put the total revenue at $6.63 billion in 2023.
Wow. And the basic model is they take a 20% cut from creators, right?
That's the standard cut. Though the sources also noted something interesting. While subscriptions are big, like 41% of revenue, an even bigger chunk, 59% actually comes from add-ons. Things like pay-per-view messages, tips, live streams.
So the interaction stuff is really where a lot of the money is.
Seems to be, yeah. More than just the basic subscription fee.
And one key reason they get to keep that full 20% cut, unlike some other platforms,
is that they don't have a native mobile app on the main app stores, Apple or Google. So they avoid that revenue share, that Apple tax or Google tax.
Right, a strategic move. So, okay, incredibly profitable. You'd think selling it would be easy.
Yeah.
But the sources say not so much. It's proving tricky.
That's the core paradox here. It's hugely profitable, but its reputation is tied so strongly to X-rated adult content.
Right.
And that focus severely limits the pool of potential buyers. It also makes applying standard tech company valuation metrics really difficult.
I saw those valuations were all over the place in the report. Some low, based on adult industry comps, others way higher, trying to treat it like a pure tech platform.
Exactly. Is it tech or is it adult content for valuation? That's the puzzle. And many potential buyers, big ones like private equity firms that manage, say, state pension funds, they often have rules, mandates that literally prohibit them from owning adult content businesses and mainstream media companies. They tend to run screaming from the porn taint, as some sources bluntly put it, worried about their brand image.
So even if OnlyFans itself wants to be seen as just a neutral platform, like, say, X or something, hosting all sorts of content,
public perception, and maybe more importantly, financial industry norms, firmly place it in the adult content box.
And that's a huge barrier to a mainstream sale.
Precisely. The sources point to the struggles other big adult sites like Pornhub have had trying to find buyers as kind of a cautionary tale.
Were any specific potential buyers named in the reports? Anyone kicking the tires?
The New York Post mentioned a couple. A consortium led by U.S. investment firm Forest Road Company Kevin Mayer, the former Disney exec, was apparently involved. And also, maybe surprisingly, UFC fighter Conor McGregor was floated as someone who had looked into it at some point.
Huh. An eclectic mix, definitely. So why would Radvinsky want to sell now, after making all that money? Is it just cashing out at the peak? Taking chips off the table?
It's certainly one possibility the sources float, yeah. Just locking in those massive profits after an incredible run.
Makes sense.
But it could also be linked to mounting pressures the platform's facing, external pressures.
Like what kind of pressures are we talking about?
Well, regulatory pressure is a big one. We're seeing stricter rules around age verification popping up globally. Think the UK's Online Safety Act. Governments everywhere are just increasing scrutiny on platforms that host user-generated content, especially adult content.
Okay. The regulatory vice tightening.
Yeah. And also, this links back to what we were just talking about, the potential future threat from AI video generation. Could that disrupt the very market OnlyFans dominates right now?
Ah, okay, so the rise of AI itself could be a factor, making the owner think, maybe now's the time to sell before that wave hits.
That connection is definitely implied in some of the reporting. That anticipating market disruption or just more regulatory headaches might make selling now look like a smart move.
Interesting.
And then there's the legal context, too. OnlyFans relies heavily on Section 230 in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
That protection that says platforms generally aren't liable for user content. But sources suggest there's growing debate legally about whether platforms can claim willful ignorance about illegal content forever and still keep that protection. That could be a future vulnerability.
So regulatory, legal, maybe technological disruption. Lots of potential headwinds.
Exactly. And even just on a day-to-day business level, this industry faces much higher credit card processing fees, over 10% sometimes. Plus, chargebacks are a constant operational risk. It's just a tougher business to be in from that perspective.
Okay, let's zoom out again now. Thinking about the bigger picture here, what are the wider impacts, the ethical questions raised by this explosion of AI content, especially in the adult space?
Well, the pressure on human creators is not just OnlyFans, right? As AI gets better across the board at generating realistic content, images, video, text, it could impact creators on YouTube, Instagram, everywhere, forcing them to adapt or, potentially be outcompeted on certain things.
And the ethical side. Yeah. Pretty deep questions. Should users always know if they're talking to an AI or a human?
Well, that's a huge one.
Is it okay to create AI models that deliberately mimic real people? Maybe without permission. Where do we draw the lines around AI and adult content specifically?
These are really challenging questions the sources wrestle with, and honestly, there aren't easy answers. There's also a perspective noted in some of the online discussions we reviewed, suggesting that sometimes, maybe, the act of paying for online adult content might tap into deeper things for the consumer, like loneliness or seeking some kind of connection.
And then there's the really dark side mentioned prominently. Malicious deepfakes.
Yeah, this is critical and frankly, pretty scary. The ability to create convincing fake videos and images, it just opens the door wide for destroying reputations, spreading targeted misinformation, committing fraud, manipulating people psychologically. It's a massive potential problem.
And that age verification issue we mentioned earlier connects right into this.
Yeah.
Okay, OnlyFans requires payment info, but sources point out fraud happens, stolen cards, fake IDs.
Yeah.
It creates a false sense of security, maybe.
Right. And stricter checks are likely coming, partly due to that regulatory pressure, but also because these platforms can be vulnerable to money laundering.
It feels like a constant battle against bad actors.
It is. And beyond the content itself, there's this bigger looming worry. AI, yes, it's a powerful creative tool, but it also poses this significant threat of, well, massive economic disruption, job displacement, not just for artists or writers, but potentially across many, many fields.
Which leads to that massive, almost unavoidable societal question. How do we handle a future where there might just be significantly fewer traditional jobs to go around?
It's a question raised quite starkly in some of those forum discussions. You know what happens to work, to income. And tangled up in that, you also see these arguments described by some sources as coming from exploitative opportunists who might resist regulation.
How so?
Well, framing it as freedom of expression, but maybe meaning freedom to defame. Or economic freedom, but maybe meaning freedom to bypass labor laws or tax rules. It's a complex debate.
That's, a challenging perspective to hear it framed that way.
It is, and some sources definitely touch on more, let's say, dystopian fears about what widespread AI-driven job scarcity could really mean long term.
Looking at the current AI video tools, though, like that VO3 mentioned in the forums,
Yeah.
they sound powerful, but are they quite there yet? Are they seamless?
Not quite seamless, no. Based on those discussions, tools like VO3 are definitely impressive, huge potential, but the sources indicate they can still be, buggy. They might struggle with keeping a character looking consistent from one clip to the next.
The consistency problem.
Exactly. And it still takes significant effort, significant resources, computing power, credits you have to buy, plus quite a bit of manual editing and fixing to turn the raw AI output into something really polished and usable. It's not quite a magic make video button yet.
But the key word is yet.
Yeah.
The improvement speed is the thing,
That's what everyone emphasizes. The trajectory is steep.
which naturally leads to calls for technical solutions, right? Ways to verify what's real.
Yeah, things like embedding digital signatures in content or using blockchain tech, maybe, to create a verifiable record of authenticity. Trying to draw a clear line between human-made and AI-generated media.
Because otherwise, you have this constant blurring of lines between reality and fiction online. And just the mental toll, the exhaustion of constantly having to second-guess everything you see, everything you interact with.
It's becoming a real burden, that constant need for skepticism online.
So let's try and wrap this deep dive up. It feels clear that AI isn't just some niche tech trend anymore. It's fundamentally reshaping entire industries. It's challenging our basic ideas about work, about authenticity, maybe even about reality itself.
Absolutely. And platforms like OnlyFans, they're right at the sharp end of these changes. They're grappling with this tech disruption from AI creators hitting them from one side, while also navigating these really complex business challenges and growing pressure from regulators on the other.
And the fact that this hugely profitable platform is apparently for sale, it just perfectly highlights that tension, doesn't it? Massive financial success built on ground that, well, much of the traditional business world won't touch.
Right.
And now facing these new potential disruptions from AI and increasing external scrutiny.
It's a really fascinating real-time snapshot of disruption, adaptation, and maybe uncertainty in the digital age.
Which kind of leaves us, and you listening, with this thought to chew on. As AI gets better and better at mimicking human connection, at generating content that's basically indistinguishable from reality, what does that ultimately mean for the value we place on authentic human interaction online? What happens to creative work, to jobs, when AI can just conjure up compelling art, text, video, almost instantly? And maybe the biggest question for all of us, how will you, navigating this constantly shifting digital world, keep your footing? How will you discern what's real from what's artificial?
It's probably a question that's going to define our online lives and maybe more going forward.